been to Serbia yet?
I've been in it. I've been to Barry's. That's about it.
Yeah. I've been out
To me,
very
a
much.
casino's a casino.
Yeah.
I've only been up to the lounge at top, Legacy.
Have you?
Yeah, I did. I haven't really walked to the casino much.
It's loud.
Is
The
it?
music is loud.
Oh, perfect.
Hello. Not at all. Good to see you. Miss Deborah,
All right.
I'll give you the floor.
I've got the floor, I guess. So, all right. Well, welcome everyone. I'm your dining host, Deborah Thomas Neininger. So, I'm going to be going through a variety of different etiquette issues with you. And I assume they have the workbook, or they saw
I did
that.
send it out to you.
Okay. Because I'll make some references throughout the program to a few things that were in that workbook. And then I do encourage you to look through it thoroughly, read it. And then also because my contact information is in there, that if you wanted to email me with any additional questions that may pop up, feel free to do so. Because I would very much enjoy staying in touch with you as you go through your career paths. If you have questions, I'm here for you. And it's a free service, so feel free to contact me anytime. This is just one of many programs that in fact I do teach, and I also want to let you know that dining etiquette, you may think, well, we're young, we're here learning things, and I bet everyone who's my parents' age or grandparents' age that they have this completely smoothly down pat and know it all. Well, guess again, because just recently I was in Lake Tahoe, as a matter of fact, 48 hours ago, and teaching people who could be your parents and grandparents the exact thing that you're going to be going through today. So there are people who learn about this at a different stage in their life, so don't feel embarrassed, please don't feel awkward. And the way that I teach any and all of my etiquette programs, it has zero to do with being a snob. It has nothing to do with anyone's socioeconomic background or any of those factors, because I like to start by saying good etiquette starts with being nice, being kind, being thoughtful. And part of what I'm going to share with you today, the dining etiquette actually has many years history. Some of the etiquette items I'm going to give you are actually 500 years old, 1,000 years old, because they still work, some of the tips and tricks that I'll be teaching you. But you're going to be in charge of helping establish some new etiquette moving forward in society. Because when people ask me the question, who makes up all of these rules? Actually, it is you. It's the current society at large, because whatever we consider important, we do those things. Whatever we think, oh, that doesn't matter, we stop doing it. So I'm going to be sharing with you today some of the things that will make your dining experience easier, because you're going to be going through a variety of, I would say, interview meals. That still is a very popular item. And then with your positions, when you're hired for different jobs, you're going to find that there are constantly events. And you might even be in charge of hosting clients. So wherever your future may take you, there will be food. And you're going to want to know what to do and how to do it. Now they're about to serve us some wonderful bread and butter, and I'm going to be going through what to do with the bread and butter. But first I'd like to start with sitting down, explaining when to sit, how to sit, and where to sit. So for instance, when you look at the chair, approach it that you're going to enter and exit from the right side of the chair. And any item that you're carrying, such as I have my usual oversized handbag. So I want to make sure that Melissa doesn't fall over my items, so I will put them on the right side so that no one has to worry about stepping over them other than me, because she'll be exiting from the right side of her chair. That's just a super simple rule. Not everyone knows it, but it makes it a lot easier at the table. Now, this chair was selected for me very graciously, thank you. And so I'm here so you can see me from this vantage point. But if you were walking into the room, and the person usually who walks into the room first, following the restaurant host, is going to be the guest. And normally the restaurant host is going to guide you toward the best chair at the table, especially if they think you're the number one guest or you happen to be the only guest. So let's say you're on that interview meal, keep in mind, they'll be guiding you to the right chair. And normally the best chair at the table is going to be the one with a perfect view. And of course, we have a perfect view from all angles right now. And then once you sit down, the first thing you do before you do anything, before you pick up water, iced tea, any beverage, or bread and butter, you want to unfold the napkin and put it on your lap. Now, by unfold, I mean just to this position where it is in the half. And so they have it beautifully placed in front of you. And so it's important that you use it right away. And so you're going to put the napkin on your lap with the fold facing the body. And the napkin's not going to leave your lap except for 2 occasions. So the napkin will leave your lap when you blot your mouth, because you blot before drinking if you've been eating. Because if you have food on your face, you don't want it to end up in your beverage. So you always blot before drinking, in between eating and having a sip of any beverage. That's the only time the napkin comes off your lap, other than, excuse me, I'm going to now leave the table to go to the washroom. I'm not going to announce where I'm going. I'm just simply going to say, excuse me, as I leave the table. Everyone can kind of figure out I'm going to the washroom. And then this signal very simply tells the server, please don't take my plate of food because I am returning. The only time the napkin is placed back onto the table is when you are actually standing up and leaving. Check has been paid, everyone is saying goodbye, and off you go. So the napkin is not a handkerchief of tissue, so it comes nowhere near the nose. It also is not a laundry item. You're not going to dip it into your water if you spill something on your clothing and try to clean up at the table. Nope, go to the washroom for that. And nor do you spit food into this that you did not like. So you don't do any of those items, and you probably have seen people doing all of those things. But that's the napkin. That's the guideline for the napkin. And for the gentleman, you do not take your ties and wing them over your shoulder because you're afraid of spilling something on them, nor do you stuff your ties inside your shirt. And also for the gentleman, when you are seated, you don't take your jackets off at the table. Now I know this has become quite the trend, and there are some trends, and I'm going to tell you, you're going to have to be the one who makes your own judgment calls going forward. But there are certain things that can cross that line of being too casual, then it can be borderline rude. So right now, men are hotly debating can we take off our jackets and roll up our sleeves? And I say, sure, if you're at a barbecue. You know, there are times where exceptions are made for everything, but at a table like this, for nice fine dining, no, you're going to keep your jackets on. So any questions about this so far? All right, now let's go ahead, and you each have in front of you, to your left, a bread and butter plate. Your bread and butter plate will always be on your left. Beverages will always be on your right. And if you happen to be...
Excuse us for a second.
Oh,
so
yes, please.
So we can explain the breads and butters that
Oh,
we have here.
yes,
and
I'd love to
sea
hear
salt
about
as
it.
well.
Oh,
Wow.
So we have a sourdough bread over here. We have a cheddar cheese. So with butter, we have a plain butter on the right side, and we have a garlic parmesan on the left side. And we also have some sea salt. We have some molten sea salt, the white one. We have some black Hawaiian sea salt and the smoked sea salt. And you could actually put that in your bread, in your vegetables, and the meat, and pretty much it enhance the flavor of your food.
Can you explain the different breads again? So
Absolutely.
sourdough and the cheddar
We have
cheese.
a sourdough, and
Okay.
this is the cheddar cheese. And they're from a local bakery called Great Buns here in Las Vegas. And then the butters, again, we have a plain butter and then a garlic parmesan butter, which goes really good with both breads.
It looks amazing.
Yeah, it's delicious.
may I place my order to go now for bread and butter and
Sure,
salts?
absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
serious.
Oh,
This is
my husband, who is a cook by hobby, he does all of those types of salts, and I'm going to tell you, it makes a world of difference. It just livens everything. I have never seen that done before. That is awesome. Wow. Well, he's jealous that he's not here. I should have brought him. All right, so now you have even more to think of. So what do we do? If we were passing things, let's just say it was one table and we had to pass one item around, you pass to the right. So, but today we have bread positioned at different stations. So we can kind of divide it up that we have 3 and 3 and 3-ish. So we can share that way. But what you can do when you're with friends and family, colleagues at work, you can pick up the bread, take your piece first, and serve yourself first, if you like. But a nice thing to do is to actually hold it for the person who's next to you, to let them take theirs first, then you take yours. But I have seen this happen, that the person who's being nice holds it for the person to take theirs, and then they just keep passing it, and then you didn't get any. So that's another one of those little judgment calls. So please, let's go ahead now and help ourselves to the bread, because I'd like to demonstrate how to butter the bread. So we can start with the passing. So there we have that to start being passed around. I will go ahead and I'm going to demonstrate if I may. Let's see. There are a few ways to do this, because we have become very conscious of germs, haven't we? So if I'm taking this, I'm trying not to overly touch the, and I've got the napkin on the wrong
And I'm not
hand.
holding it very well. There is definitely a knife here to help. Thanks.
So I had the napkin on the wrong hand. I would have held it this way and pulled the bread off so that my fingers were not touching the bread that you're about to take. And then I could help myself to a little bit of butter. By the way, whatever you take now, that's it. So make sure whatever you take, you're comfortable with that, because once you use a knife, a used knife never goes back into a community dish. So take whatever amount you want. Now, once you have your bread, so before I sit down, I want to demonstrate this so you can see. When you take your bread, make sure it is a bite-sized piece. You do not butter the entire roll. You only butter the bites you're going to eat. So that would apply to any and all breads. You only butter one little tiny bite at a time. You've seen people butter an entire roll, then they hold the roll and just kind of gnaw on it. So again, look at it as bite-sized, manageable pieces that you're going to butter one bite at a time. All right, so please go ahead and pass your breads around, and please help yourselves. You could, yes. If the bread needs additional cutting, it might be something where you're going to need to balance it and put it actually on the table in front of you so you can cut it. So keep in mind this, every etiquette guideline we have, if there's a better way to do something because it's common sense to do that, then make the adjustment.
Oh my God. Butter. Wow. Your husband's missing out.
This should just not either judge the government.
What?
Obviously, you know, it's
You did?
I-
You want some as well?
Is the bread
You're doing
normally
that really
served here?
well though.
Is the bread normally
So
served
yeah,
here?
the bread and salt we did, that's exposure open.
This is my. Oh my gosh. I'm with it. Well, a lot of times Andrew would serve things. I'm like, oh my gosh, light of candy, can't wait to come back. And he's like, nope.
Yeah, this is some of the stuff we do serve. The mac and cheese. I know for you, but we don't have any short rib on there. The burrata we serve.
I'll eat it all.
I'm good, thank you.
You don't have to worry about me.
Now, I'm going to be giving tips while you're eating, so I will not be talking with food in my mouth, which is the polite thing not to do, right? You don't want to talk with food in your mouth. So I will have a few bites of every item so that you can see how to manipulate and manage. But don't follow my example of how quickly I'm eating, because then you won't get to finish your meals. So please enjoy the food as each course comes to you. I'll be giving you suggestions and helpful hints along the way. Absolutely.
We want you to enjoy the meal. So if you have, this is your time to learn, this is your time to make mistakes, this is your time to ask questions. So don't be nervous about eating bread because you don't want to mess up. This is a great time to ask, or just say, hey, you know, I learned my first year that I slathered on like a cave woman. Because I was one of those people that slathered the whole piece of bread first. So ask questions, but enjoy it. This is such a great opportunity. Thank you, Ken, to get to dine here. So, you know, don't worry about it. Just ask the questions, or Deborah will tell you.
Thank you, Melissa. I appreciate that, because I do want you to be comfortable. In fact, I make this joke. Whenever my husband says, oh, I met someone new at the cigar store and he and his wife want to have dinner with us. And I say, that's great, but just make sure that you do not tell your new friend that this is what I do, that I teach dining etiquette, because they will not want to have dinner with us, because no one likes to sit next to me. As soon as they know that this is one of the topics that I teach, all of a sudden people are thinking, and I've had people say to me, I want to enjoy my meal. Could you go sit in another room, or I don't want to sit next to you. Oh, I have had it all happen to me over my many years of doing this. So my emphasis is this: you should be able to sit down, enjoy a meal with anyone, because you know what to do. And you can enjoy the food, but more importantly, you can enjoy the reason why you're there. If you're with family, you're enjoying your family. If you're wanting to impress a new potential boss, you know, you can focus on those questions they're throwing at you, which they will during the interview meal. You'll take a bite of food. As soon as you get the food in your mouth, they're asking you a question. So how do you handle that? Well, you simply don't talk with the food in your mouth, and you can just do the quick little single finger point that indicates, I'll answer it in a second, but don't chew too quickly, you might choke. I've seen that happen to people. So do keep in mind, everyone, myself included, has a faux pas at the table. I am a total klutz. I am usually the first one to knock over water, and I was already moving my iced tea, making sure that it wasn't going to end up on Melissa, because I sometimes move so quickly, especially with my hands. I'm a very animated speaker that, yes, I knock things over. If you make a mistake, just simply apologize, fix it up as you can, and then move on. Because there is no one ever around you who has not made a mistake at the table. But for a lot of people, because they didn't learn a little of this or that growing up perhaps, they weren't exposed to it, so they're, for instance, hearing things for the very first time, such as, if you look at the silverware in front of you, and you may wonder, which fork will I use? Well, without even looking at the menu, right now you can tell we're going to need a spoon for something, and there's also a small fork which indicates a salad, and we're going to have a main entree. So everything here with your silverware is indicating the course procedure, and you always start from the outside and work your way inward. Yes?
When you're eating, is there like a proper way to like rest your hands like on the table or like on your lap?
Such a great question. And I'm glad you asked that. The place to put your hands is always above the table. Now that's actually, and the reason I include this, I do a lot of international training as well for people who are going to be doing business with other cultures. And in most cultures, to have hands below the table is a major faux pas. You just don't want to do it.
So what you have in front of you is a maple bourbon glaze pork belly. Yours is going to be impossible.
Wow.
That we made. And so what we do with the pork belly is we dry rub it for 2 days. Let that rub sit into the pork belly. And then we have a rotisserie smoker downstairs for our barbecue restaurant. We smoke the pork belly for 6+ hours, bring it up here, and then it's sliced, and we sear it in a really hot pan. And it's finished with the maple bourbon glaze. And then we also add a little smear of our Dijon mustard. Yours is going to be prepared similar too. So enjoy.
Peanuts or seafood?
No peanuts or seafood.
All right, now, how to hold the silverware. the correct way to hold the silverware. And I am left-handed. Is anyone else left-handed?
I am.
All right, well, there are two of us.
Okay.
All right, so you're going to have your silverware in the opposite hands, but you're going to hold them and position them the same way. So, for instance, the correct way to hold a fork is with your pointer finger at the base of the fork, tines are downward when you cut. And as you cut with a knife, you always hold your elbows tight to your body, and it's not a sawing motion. It's going to be just a very easy cutting motion. You did that beautifully. So we'll use you as the model.
I'll tell my mama.
Oh, she did a good job.
8 years of Etiquette Lunch.
Yes, 8 years of this, right? So you just cut it into a bite-sized piece. Now I dine in the continental way, and I believe you're doing the same thing. So that means the fork is going to go into the mouth with the tines downward. Now you can do American zigzag. You can cut a bite or two, and then put your knife down. Transfer your fork to your right hand, unless you're left-handed, pierce and eat. That's American zigzag, but you never cut more than 2 bites if you're doing it that way. I have found the continental or European way of dining where the knife remains in your hand. It's very efficient. You also get to use the knife as a pusher, pushing items onto the back of the fork. If, like the sauce for instance, the mustard, if you decide that you want to try this, make sure you try it and kind of perfect it before you want to impress someone though, so that your hands become very comfortable with that. But you never want to hold your fork straight up and down. People who hold their fork straight up and down and kind of club the handle, that looks very juvenile and looks as though you're still 4 years old. So, questions on how to hold your silverware? Well, please enjoy this course. So I want you to make sure that you get every morsel of this because what I've tasted so far is yummy.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Yes.
Is there like any rule about dipping? Like, do I take a bread and dip it in the butter, or is it better to smear it? Or
If a butter knife is presented, you're supposed to use the knife to put the butter onto the bread rather than smearing it or dipping it. You're correct.
And some people got the salt on the plate. We also grab with the knife.
You can use your fingers with the salt. So when you do put the salt on your plate for your bread, or even as you put some on your plate for if you wanted to add any to your other courses as they recommended, it's just a finger sprinkle. You don't have to use any silverware for that. So the spoon is for you to put the salt onto your plate. The spoon is not for you to put it directly onto your food, because that spoon is going to be used by others at the table. Yes, on the outside first. So the smaller fork was the fork that we used for this course.
Excuse me, sorry. I think we might have placed the cocktail for the appetizer on the front, so next time we
Oh, okay. All right.
Apologies.
That's okay.
I was thinking we were having some sort of dessert that required a fork.
We actually have 2 appetizers coming out, that's why.
Oh, okay. So we'll use this next one for that appetizer?
I'll replace it.
Okay, all right. And again, I'm glad that you mentioned this because I do want to highlight this. All restaurants do things sometimes a little bit differently. In general, the dessert silverware is at the top, but in some cases it can be placed there as it was today for the pork belly. And so if by any chance we use the wrong one, as this gentleman just said, they're going to switch it out for us because obviously we're going to have a salad that we're going to need the salad fork for. So don't worry about that when it happens because sometimes the dessert or another course is served and the silverware is chilled, so it won't even be on the table when you sit down. It's brought with the dish.
I have a question. What do you do in the circumstance that you don't like the meal that has been put in front of you?
Ah, that question. 2 things I'm going to say that also would include dietary restrictions. If there are dietary restrictions, and there are plenty, and it is so important for you to feel comfortable. You shouldn't feel awkward sitting there thinking, how am I going to eat that because I'm vegetarian or I'm vegan and now I'm just looking at this food. So whenever you can, if you are invited to any event, let your host in advance know. Thank you for the invitation, I will be there. However, I wanted to let you know in advance I am vegan. That way, they're not embarrassed by serving you something you cannot eat. Because not every host asks the question. My husband and I now, because my husband again does love to cook, and people love his cooking, we ask some really, really, really off the wall questions whenever we host people anymore, because we're finding out that it's not just people who are vegan or vegetarian, they just don't like certain foods. We had that happen when he served his famous clams with linguine once, like they didn't like the smell of it, like, oh, that would have been nice to know in advance. Cross them off the list to be invited later. Because it was really awkward, but it wasn't that they were allergic, they just didn't like the smell of clams. So if you have any issues, speak up in advance, which then zeroes in on your question. It is what those guests did to my husband that night was just downright rude to make an issue if they don't like the smell of anything fishy. That if you have an issue, keep it to yourself. You can just very quietly say, I am sure this is delicious, but I'm just going to pass. Or you can just become quite the conversationalist at the table, and I'm just going to chat up Melissa and talk to her a great deal, and then it's time to remove my plate, and that's okay, off the plate goes. The less said, the better.
Thank you.
What happens if like you stop to drink water? Where do you put your utensils? Like do you just like put it down, or is there certain?
If I'm talking, it's going to still be in a resting position, which means it's kind of at an angle. If I'm finished, I place my fork tines downward with my knife parallel next to it, right next to it. This says to the server, without her having to ask me, she's finished. And they can come over and remove the plate without even interrupting the conversation, because this says finished.
Now, Roselle, you have severe allergies, and so I didn't think to ask them until almost yesterday, but those are definitely things as you're doing ECF events, as you're meeting with your mentors. I'm telling you, being vegetarian is my dirty little secret. It's like I have to keep, letting people know I'm a vegetarian at ECF, and I've become the difficult case, but that's very, very important that when you set up that first lunch with your mentor, sometimes they might have the chef make something special for you. I just wanted to let you know I have some seafood and peanut allergies before we set the meeting, and that's totally okay, and something you should do, because that's a pretty severe allergy, and nobody wants you to have go into an anaphylactic shock at the table. But yes, they know, just to let you know.
And people will understand. They really, in today's environment, people will understand, because those allergies are legitimate, and it is something that you need to speak up and be a self-advocate in those situations, because a lot of people don't ask those important questions of you when they invite you. My oldest son, shellfish allergies. So no, when they're at our home, my son and his family, my husband will not cook seafood, because that aroma does bother him as having a shellfish allergy. But he has to be so careful of cross-contamination, because he's had 2 or 3 almost near-death experiences. So I mean, he has that EpiPen literally attached to the hip all day long, every day, because you cannot assume that there might not be a problem. So yes, advocate for yourself.
And Ken, I think being in the food and beverage world, you're all pretty used to this by now. I think
Yeah.
Vegas does a very good job at accommodating all those. At least our food.
Yes, I have found that everywhere I train in Las Vegas, I find that as soon as I sit down, they're asking immediately, are there any allergies that we need to be aware of? Which I think is very, very helpful for them to do that, just in case that question was not able to be asked in advance. I love your questions. So now, for instance, I mentioned to you earlier, please enjoy your entire portion of each course. Don't keep pace with me because I'm speaking. But if you were my guest today, I would be watching how quickly or slowly you're eating, just so that our plates could be somewhat closely removed at the same time. It's always awkward for the one person to still be eating and everyone else is just looking at you as though, could you hurry this up?
On the topic of how fast you eat food, is there like a certain way to eat it so it's not too fast or not too slow that people are really not used to?
Well, my suggestion is keep this in mind. The average American right now consumes an entire meal in under 7 minutes. People just are inhaling their food.
I'm guilty of that. Yeah, Chris is a slow eater.
And so there really isn't any number of minutes, because a lot of it has to do, is this a more relaxed dinner? We're going to slow it down even more. If it is a specific interview lunch, it may go a little more quickly because it's midday. So just again, watch everyone else so you can pace yourself accordingly.
How was the pork belly, everyone?
Delicious.
Yeah. Awesome.
It was definitely, it's one of my husband's favorites. I'm just going to be making him miserable when I leave here today when I tell him.
My husband as well.
Oh, yes?
He's a big foodie and is incredibly jealous of what I get to experience at my job.
I bet.
If you like, whenever you're eating and you dirty your fingers, do you use the napkin or?
Yes, if you need to wipe off your hands, try to do that. You can do that below the table, especially if you feel like you got something stuck on your finger or under a fingernail. You don't want to do any public grooming above the table where people can see you doing it. So yes, you could put your hands below the table and wipe off your fingers accordingly. Maybe you got a little extra smear of butter, and then again, the blotting of the mouth if you've been eating before you drink. And not all places will be giving you straws, paper or plastic. So a lot of places now is completely without straws, which the better way to dine is without straws to drink a beverage, but we became even more germ conscious over the years, and so straws became increasingly popular even in fine dining. But I would not ask for one if one was not prepared, unless, again, you really need that because of your own germ concerns.
I have a question about like teas and coffee.
Can you speak up?
Oh, sorry. I had a question about teas and coffees because I know we have a coffee named Mentor. I know we don't have a drink currently, but is there like a specific way like you're supposed to stir it, take the spoon away and stuff like that? Because I've read stuff about that, like tea time and all that.
As far as your own teaspoon that you receive with your coffee,
Yes, like because I know like there's like certain ways to stir it so you're not too loud and all that.
you stir from the center. And that is such a practical question. I'm glad you asked that as well. Because some people, they take that spoon and they stir it around the edges as though they're trying to make music. So, no, you stir actually from the center. People are also going to count. They're going to count how many packets of sugar you put in there. They're going to count how many pieces of bread you eat. People do that. And so often the guideline is no more than 2 packets of sugar, no more than 2 servings of bread. Although that bread, there just has to be an exception for that, right?
Can't let it go to waste.
Well, yes, can't just throw away food, no. So yes, and then once you're finished stirring, the spoon goes on the saucer, if there's a saucer with your teacup or your coffee cup. But if there's a mug, you don't have usually a service plate. That means you're going to want to, for instance, let's just say this was a teaspoon and I'm stirring coffee. If my coffee was a mug, more casual, like at a breakfast meeting, I would find a plate, something that I could rest my spoon against, because once this piece of silverware has been used, it should not go directly back onto the table. You want to put it on something else so as not to soil the table. See, aren't these just little niceties, little things that,
Yeah.
I mean, and a lot of it is, frankly, common sense. So many of these items are not going to be challenging at all for you to remember. And the more you practice it, the more you become comfortable. Well, we're just getting more into trouble with each course that is served.
And this is
Now, if I may ask our servers, do you want us to use this fork at the top for this one now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, okay, so now this is going to be, since this is an appetizer, and this is definitely, you can look at this actually is an appetizer fork. typically a dessert fork is going to be a little bit larger, maybe even closer to as you see your salad fork.
And so this course is our short rib mac and cheese. It's served with gemelli pasta, which is a twisted pasta. It's on a bed of sauteed spinach. Our mac and cheese is a blend of Gouda, sharp cheddar, Parmesan, and garlic. And the short rib we braise for 6+ hours, and then that's shredded into the mac and cheese. Enjoy.
Thank you.
So this is similar to what I was just saying with the coffee cup and saucer. This is a liner plate. Therefore, once you are finished with your enjoyment of this delicious item, when you're finished, you're going to put your fork on the plate. You won't leave it in the bowl. And this does look yummy. You have a question? Okay. And it is so yummy. So delicious. Speaking of yummy, what you don't want to do is make puppy noises at the table, smacking your lips. I mean, some people, you know, it's wonderful to describe how great the food is. Be careful with any extra facial noises or smacking of the lips. And also, what about taking pictures of your food? Now today
It's
you're
okay
here.
here. It's
Yes,
absolutely okay.
absolutely okay here. And I hope you do, and I should have been, just so I could tease the husband.
Right? No, please do here. Please do at ACF events. We
Yes.
love it.
But when you're on that interview lunch, no.
When you're with your board member, absolutely fine.
In fact, when you are at your specific interview type meals, then you don't even have your phone visible. A lot of people asked me just the other day, what about their phones? Because they have their phones right on the table during the meals, and I said, no. When during the meal itself, the phone should not be on the table unless you are expecting a crisis call from the hospital. So I should be with you. I should be present. We should be exchanging great conversation, not I'm checking my phone every 5 minutes, which is pretty much the average or less for people. Which now brings me to this. What kind of things are you going to talk about? So, have you started practicing small talk? What can you talk about that's interesting, that's exciting, that is also non-polarizing? So you're going to want to stay away from some of the obvious topics that I think we all know, that you just avoid those. And it's increasingly difficult with the news every day to not have a conversational topic that someone is going to then take it and run, and it becomes a nightmare of negativity. Therefore, I suggest already before any event you go to, such as today, you could have already thought of something that you could turn to the person seated next to you and start chatting things up a little bit about this or that that's happening with maybe your career, or what's happening with ECF, or what's happening in Las Vegas in general. So first thing my husband did this morning was take a picture. We had a view of it from our room of the Raiders Stadium, because one of his best friends is a major Raiders fan, and he just tweeted it to him or texted it to him rather and said, "Are you ready for football?" And of course it's much earlier or much later in Ohio, which is where we live, and so he immediately got a response back from his friends. So I could talk to you right now about the Raiders. I could talk to you about the Knights. We could talk sports. Never assume that women don't enjoy talking sports or don't care to talk sports, because I happen to enjoy it. So what small talk topics could you think of that you're comfortable sharing? So let's just, each of you give an idea. What would be a small talk topic, something that would get people chatting about themselves or about something that you're sharing that would be interesting, that everyone could enjoy chatting about?
Well, I would share my experience here. It's my first time being in Fremont. The view is great. Talk about the view and just this area.
Perfect.
I could talk about the increasingly large amounts of rains that's been going on the past couple of days. Like, I haven't seen that in a long while. How much rain?
And they do. People do love to know. People will often ask you, what book are you reading right now? And please make sure you have an answer. Because you do want to come across as someone who's current, relevant, well-read. So you might want to have that tucked away, how you would answer that question. All right, next, what would you talk about?
Probably about work.
Work?
Ask others about like if they have a job or what they're doing in their job.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
I'm a really big foodie, so I would ask how they enjoy the meal and if they've had any other meals that meet this expectation anywhere else in Vegas.
All good points, yes.
Yes, thank you.
And even though we say, okay, stay away from politics, religion, and even weather, well, weather has become quite a topic because it took me 3 different changes of flights Sunday to get here. Almost didn't make it because the airplane tires were melting on the tarmac. And it was not safe for the planes to land. Yes. So it was one of those, okay, weather moments. And like you with the rain, driving yesterday, I thought, this is a lot of rain. I haven't experienced this very often, maybe never quite like this in all the years that I've been coming to Vegas. So weather patterns are definitely changing, and certainly people are talking about making the adjustments. Not to mention, you're talking about Vegas heat? We had 115 degrees heat index in Ohio just 2 weeks ago, my city, Columbus. Yes. And so it was like, okay, I could be, plus we have humidity. Yes. So yes, we can talk more. But it's nice to feel that you can talk with others, but also, here's a homework assignment for you. Practice your 10-second self-introduction. Before I explain that, we have some guests here.
First, I'd like to say welcome to the Top Convenience Steakhouse. I'm Chef Ed. This is Chef Ivan.
Good afternoon.
The first course you had, the pork belly, we cooked right here on property. It was pork blaze. It was a short rib. No. Pork belly. Excuse me. Pork belly with a bourbon glaze reduction. That was the first, and then you're eating there the mac and cheese with the short rib.
Delicious, thank you.
It's delicious.
Our next course is going to be our snap pea soup. So we use fresh snap peas on that. It's pureed, heavy whipping cream. Used for our vegetarians and non-vegetarians.
Is that served warm or cold?
Warm, yeah.
Yes.
That's me.
I was a vegetarian for a while, so we're good here. I've got you. And then we're gonna. What are you gonna ask about?
I think you have your crusted
Oh, filet.
filet.
Crusted?
Yeah.
Crusted filet? No, the burrata's
Oh,
after
the burrata?
that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Ooh, I can't wait
Okay,
for
the
that.
burrata salad is heirloom tomatoes with arugula, with salt and pepper, little olive oil mixed in, with a bruschetta cheese on top.
And then we're gonna finish that off with the espresso crusted filet with the Peruvian potato, little red wine in that for roast, and then
Creme
fresh
brulee.
vegetables.
And you got creme brulee.
And then our dessert's gonna be a creme brulee and a dark chocolate mousse.
And you found the way to my heart. Thank you.
You are
Thank you, guys.
spoiling us.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Hope
Thank
you enjoy.
Thank you.
Enjoy.
Again, welcome to Top of Beans.
Thanks for having us. Saying about our introductions.
Mm.
Our 10-second introduction.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Now, if you're ready for these, you're going to want to prepare at least 2 or 3 different ones. You need to be able to self-introduce in a very quick way where you're not giving a biography, but it's just something that's a little bit about you that as you're shaking hands and people ask all sorts of questions. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Why did you choose this career path? And on and on. You need to be ready with how you then project yourself with a certain presence when you introduce. Typically when I'm shaking hands with people, I get the question, now Deborah, exactly what is it again that you do? Because people are often confused by my large title of soft skills, because I have about 50 different programs that people are often like, what are soft skills? And so I do this quick introduction. Deborah, now what is it that you do again? Oh, I teach soft skills to help make people strong because life is entirely too short to not know what to do. That's it. I don't give all the names of my soft skills, but that's usually the next question. People will say, well, what are soft skills? And I respond with, they're people skills. Well, what are some of the skills that you teach? Well, I teach how to grow a backbone, how to be more assertive. I teach presentation skills. I teach how to deal with difficult people. Not that you ever have any in Las Vegas, of course. No divas ever. And so this gives people a chance to find out more about me, but they get to ask the questions rather than me just kind of pummeling them with too much information at once. So if you were introducing yourself right now, what would make you memorable? What within that 10-second period of a quick intro would make you stand out? This is a little homework assignment. I'm sure that you can report back to Melissa or you can work together as a group to share that. But coming up with something that is short and snappy, but again, memorable in a good way.
And you're going to use it a lot at menus because you get a designated amount of time at menus to actually enjoy the event with your mentor, and you go around and dine and they will introduce you to other people. And everyone is going to look to you for that 10 to 15 second introduction and ask you a lot of these questions that they're going to.
So get ready. And it's fun. It's fun, but a lot of people don't know how to introduce themselves. Also, as you are meeting other people, a quick tip, remember their names by spelling their name in your head. So as you're shaking hands, just spell that name, Melissa, Melissa. I can visualize it when your brain can see something, like if a person's wearing a name badge, it's easier to remember their name because you're reading it. You'll remember it easier, but when you spell the name in the head, that really helps you remember the name. And if you forget someone's name, admit it. We all do it. So just go ahead and admit it. Also, don't change a person's name. I go by Deborah, I don't go by Deb. And I don't call Melissa Missy.
Thank you for that.
So what questions might you have so far in regard to our... Yes. No, finish. Well, I'm not finished.
Would you like me to say what I'm saying?
Sure. Wait. I'm going to take the time this one.
Okay.
Oh, well,
We can
actually...
wrap it.
Okay.
We can put it to one for you.
Well, thank you. I'm going to tease him this time for sure. All right, so what questions do you have for me so far in regard to everything I've given you?
I have a question of when you're introducing yourself, do you introduce yourself first and last name or just first name? Or does it depend?
The more formal the situation, you're going to give your entire name. The more casual it is, and maybe people have heard of you, so it's not where they don't know something about you already. So for instance, if I've heard about Melissa before, then when we're meeting for the first time, oh, hello, it's so good to finally meet you, Deborah. We've been exchanging emails back and forth. It could be just first name. But the more formal it is, yes, the whole name. Which brings me to me. I have a very long last name. So my last name is Thomas Neininger with a hyphen in between two last names because I made that decision, which I question almost every day. I could have just kept it easy with Thomas, still would have gotten married, but no, I decided to add the name, which everyone struggles with. In fact, usually on the hotel screen when I check into the rooms, they abbreviate either my last name or my first name. So my husband has nicknamed me on this trip Debo. Rather than Deborah, they don't have the whole Deborah. It's the Thomas Neininger and then Debo. So people with their names, though, they want their names pronounced correctly, and they don't want you to take liberties with their names. So that's why it's important to listen to it. And if you struggle with the name, ask for help. Because if the name is challenging to pronounce because you're not familiar with that dialect or that particular culture, just ask for assistance. People are more than happy to help you. All right, now, the next course is about to arrive, which I believe is the snap pea soup. And may I just recommend, I'm going to talk a little bit now about what to order and what not to order. Soup would be one of those items. When you're trying to impress someone, unless you're very artful with soup. Now, if you're really good at getting soup from the bowl to the mouth and using the soup spoon correctly, go for it. But more people than not struggle with that. Therefore, when you are dining with people who the conversation is going to be lively and you want to make sure that you focus on the conversation, not the food, order food that is easy to manage. Things that are not easy to manage, sandwiches. Things that have to twirl, like pastas. So anything that requires too much extra attention and it's going to take away from you feeling calm and confident, save some of the difficult food items, eat those when you're with family and friends who love you and adore you and don't care if perhaps you've spilled something or you don't know how to twirl those noodles correctly. So sandwiches can, however, be eaten with a knife and a fork. But most people just eat the sandwich with their hands and they pick up the sandwich and things fall out and it just makes quite a mess. So you can cut your sandwich in half, but I still recommend it's best to avoid the sandwich unless you plan to use a knife and fork when you're at those particular types of meals. Now soup, because it is one of the more challenging items, I'm going to demonstrate before it gets here that the way you hold it, again, most of you will be holding this in your right hand, but the correct way to hold the soup spoon, you're going to have the spoon held further out on the actual stem of the soup spoon. So as you place it in the bowl, it goes down into the bowl, away from you, and then back towards you. Now the reason for that, when you place it in the bowl and it goes slightly away from you and then back towards you, you can graze the base of the spoon against the lip of the bowl, just in case there's anything dripping on it. That way it won't drip on your clothing. If you put the spoon directly in, just bring it right up, it can easily drip. That's, again, see, another common sense etiquette rule. That's why that rule does in fact exist.
This, your split pea, or the snap pea, is made with a vegetable base. And this is a creme fraiche we finish over the top. It's delicious.
My husband makes it up once a week. We do creme fraiche or berries. It's our healthy dessert. I love watching the creme fraiche as it's made, and it just sits there and percolates.
So on the chef explained earlier, there's a toasted crostini, and on top of the toasted crostini is crispy pancetta, which is Italian bacon, Italian ham, which is absolutely delicious, finished with little microgreens.
Oh my gosh, this is just fantastic. Now, the question, when do you start any course?
Whenever you want to start.
Yeah, ooh, you get a star by your name. Because hardly anyone says that anymore. My objective has always been, what's the hurry? I wait for everyone at the table to be served. Now, if I'm the host, however, and the food that is being served is temperature sensitive, such as a seafood item, I might say to the table, please do not wait, go ahead. Because that way, as the host, I want everyone to have their food at the right temperature. But unless someone tells you to do that, I think the polite thing to do is to wait. But some people are now saying, oh, well, once 3 people have been served, once 5 people have been served, it's okay. And my guideline is, what's the rush? Just be polite and wait until everyone has been served.
Enjoy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Deborah, the exception would be if the host says, go ahead, don't wait.
Yes.
I mean, that does happen.
Yes.
You'll have dinners and the host will, don't wait for me, go ahead. So you can do that too. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely, I agree.
These shows have both.
Yes. And the spoon again, right hand, except for me and Melissa. And then you go down into the bowl and you bring up the tiniest amount, and then you can kind of scooch it just against the edge of the bowl as it comes towards you. Then when it go, and you drink from the side of the spoon. So the side of the spoon, you don't turn the spoon around. You actually drink from the side of the spoon. So it's down, up, slightly little bump on the edge so you don't have any drippings. Then you bring it to your mouth, then the side. and
I
this
have a
is,
question.
yes.
Given that there was like creme fraiche inside of it, would it be like impolite to mix this?
Yes. And that is such a unique question, but it applies to other foods as well, because sometimes when items are served, there will be a drizzle of a glaze or a drizzle of a sauce, and some people, before they start to eat, they prepare. They just slather and spread everything this way or that way. The same thing applies to stirring things up in your soup. No, it's best to just enjoy it the way it is in fact presented. No one's ever asked me that question before, so you get a star too. You all get stars
You're
today.
liberal
Your
with
questions
these
are so
stars.
great. I know.
Question. So
Yes.
this center, I forgot what it's called.
A crostini.
Steam. Would you cut that at the end with a knife or just spoon break it?
Well, and that's another star-filled room full of questions today. No other silverware ever goes into your soup bowl. So even if you have French onion soup, which is very challenging, you're not going to try to cut it with a knife and fork and then also use your spoon to eat the soup. So my suggestion is, because a crostini will soften, you will be able to slightly cut that with the edge of the spoon the longer you let it rest at the bottom of the bowl. Right, Ken?
Yep, not good.
And since we have the benefit of Ken being here, we should be peppering you with some questions too.
Good questions.
Because if you ask, and I have interviewed so many restaurant hosts and owners over the years and servers, and I ask them, and oh my gosh, the stories I get over how they see people dine and what they notice. So everything I've told you so far, such as the misuse of the napkin, or people talking with food in their mouth, or not knowing how to butter a roll, or not knowing how to pass items around the table. They've seen everything and more. And so often that's what happens, is I'm hearing from those individuals that they're noticing that table manners have not gotten better. People now more than ever need some help. But as I say, if you're dining at McDonald's, you use a napkin and you don't talk with food in your mouth. So some of the basics really don't change. The formality of the food and the restaurant changes, such as how fabulous things are here today. But you would want to use basic good manners if you're hunkering down over a Big Mac.
Quick question.
Yes.
You always scoop away from me.
Yes. You always scoop away from you, and you always do that little edge, cutting on the edge, just to avoid the dripping. And you try to do it as subtly as possible so that you're not clanging. But that is going to be the easiest way to avoid spilling it on your clothing. And you want to bring your silverware up to you. You don't want to go down to it. So as you're dining, that's another reason for that tip. You can bring your food up to you. Yes.
Whenever like you're eating something like a soup and like it drips on like your chin or like your lip, can you like lick your lip? No, right?
If you feel anything dripping, you want to grab the napkin. So you don't want to bring the tongue out of the mouth and do anything at the table.
And you'll find with, especially being a part of ECF, you're going to have a lot of unique dining options, whether it's unique and unusual place settings or foods, or they give, I think even after COVID, we had a lot of more individual plated things that I didn't know how to eat from. And it's okay to ask the host, you know, this isn't something I've ever had before. How would you recommend? And because I'll tell you, some of the things people really go above and beyond at ECF, and I'll look at it and it has some chocolate cage looking thing, and I don't know how to dig in. And I am not one to eat casually. I do love to eat, so, and I do recommend trying a little of that crostini. But yeah, it's okay to ask, and some of our board members will even say, you know, if they know or they don't know, or call somebody over to ask as well.
I'm so glad Melissa mentioned that, because whenever in doubt, and if I see something on the menu where I don't know, what does that mean? If I don't know what that ingredient is, by all means, speak up and ask. They would rather you do that than maybe not eat it because you are not sure you want to, or you're not sure exactly what it is. And to Melissa's point about the chocolate caged item, one of my clients went to some big black tie event, and they were served for dessert chocolate grand pianos. And the lid of the piano was lifted open, and white mousse, chocolate mousse, was on the inside. And imagine people in gowns and black tie affair. They picked up the pianos and bit off the legs. They picked it up with their hands because they said, "How do you eat this? This piano's not going to stay steady." And they said, "Deborah, what would you do?" And I said, "Well, I probably would have enjoyed the mousse and left the piano alone, because it's kind of like biting the ears off the chocolate Easter bunny." But I said, I'm sure everyone enjoyed watching that. That had to be one of those moments. I hope you took pictures.
Yeah.
Because there was no correct way to do it other than perhaps turn the piano on its side and cut the chocolate that way.
Yeah.
But since I didn't get to see it, I was just forming this picture of everyone holding the piano and biting off the legs.
Well, and I'll tell you, I once ordered ratatouille, which I love, at the mansion. And it came as a sandwich that was this big, and I thought to myself, oh, I messed up. That's not what I got. And I did not eat very delicately. Like a cave woman.
Well, in some situations where, again, you're not sure what to do, you can always look to see how other people are eating it if they've ordered the same thing. Or you can just simply just say, well, it looks like I'm going to need some help. Any suggestions, anyone? Because in today's environment, and this is one of the things that I love about how people's skills are progressing, we're having more of the human-to-human connection. We're not perfect. We shouldn't try to be perfect. But it's a matter of, if you don't know something, speak up. Don't suffer in silence when that means you can't enjoy the moment. Another question that has not been asked, but you might have been thinking it, do you have to finish everything, even if you're loving it? Do you have to finish every bite, or if you're full? And no, you don't. You do not have to finish everything, but don't go into excessive details, such as, well, I didn't really care for that, so I'm going to leave that behind. Or I'm on a diet. No one cares. No one wants you to ruin their parade, or rain on their parade, rather. If now all of a sudden you're saying, oh, I can't eat that because I'm on a diet. Oh, I'm not going to have bread because I'm avoiding carbs. Well, whoop-de-doo. Because more for me, I guess.
No, I know. And I'm like, everybody knows you shouldn't have the entire loaf, but don't make me feel bad about it just because I'm going for it.
Right. And there are people who do that.
I know, and you know who they are.
Yes, you do.
Is there anything on this menu you don't know what it is? 'Cause there's usually something that I don't know. Well, I'd like to know what a Bordelaise espresso sauce is.
That's a great question. We just learned about it.
Oh, great.
It is espresso, and with our Bordelaise sauce is a red wine reduction sauce with a beef stock, and they mix the espresso into the red wine and beef reduction stock, and there's a little bit of rosemary added to it. It's delicious.
How interesting.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Any other questions?
We're gonna be serving the caprese salad next, and burrata cheese. Probably a lot of you haven't had that before. It's a mozzarella cheese, and it's a really creamy, soft. Described as a buttery, creamy, soft cheese. It's delicious. It's really good.
It is my favorite thing in the world.
Yeah, it's so good. And we're gonna go grab that. We'll be right back.
There are different, I'm glad he mentioned specifically this creamy cheese, because there are different cheeses with the caprese salad, that different types of mozzarellas, if you will, and this is definitely my favorite as well. I mean, it just melts in your mouth. And once again, do you have to finish the entire salad? No, but Melissa and I probably will.
That is for sure.
So a question, on that topic, is it rude to like scrape the bowl and finish everything?
Scraping, yes. So if there's going to be a viable spoonful left, absolutely you can have that, but it shouldn't appear so much that you're about to pick it up and lick it. So just kind of draw the line where it seems to be making too much noise. Think of it as the person who, with the straw, they're all the way down making the sucking noise.
Right.
Yeah, plus this meal, we wanted you to taste a little bit of everything, so you don't have to finish it all, just so you get the flavors and get to enjoy some of the foods. You don't have to.
But you can finish it
But you
all if you're me. Oh, wow.
And this is a very miniature version of what we serve. It's really shareable.
Can you smell the basil?
Favorite.
So how do you distinguish what's garnish and what's actually part of it?
And can we offer any fresh
Oh.
black pepper on your salads?
Sure. I'll do some.
Yes. Another good question. How can you tell what's a garnish thing? What's a garnish and what you should eat or not eat?
So my two favorite salts for this would be the white Maldon and the black Hawaiian sea salt. The other Maldon to the right has a smoky flavor to it. You can buy all, try it. They're all great. I personally like the white, just the plain sea salt. And the Maldon white is one of my favorites. It just melts in your mouth. And it's not like a table salt, which is overpowering. Even the Himalayan sea salt, which is on the table in our salt shaker, that's a more powerful salt. And these are more milder sea salts, and they all come from the ocean.
Now, how would you use one of those?
Yes.
You would just sprinkle on, correct?
Absolutely, yes. So with the spoon, you can sprinkle on whichever one you wanted. In this case, you just go ahead and use the spoon.
And I normally would try my food before salting it, but I think just knowing that this is very specific to the restaurant and a unique flavor, I'd almost want to go with the suggestion of tasting one of the salts with this.
I always try. My husband and I always use the white. Yes,
That's my
always
favorite as
on-
well.
Yes, we do it on that.
You do that too. We actually love the different tastes of salt. So for holidays, I'm going to the different taste salt.
And a little information about the black Hawaiian sea salt. I mean, I've visited Hawaii, and it's Hawaii, the islands are formed from the volcanoes, and I always thought the sea salt was just black because of the Hawaiian volcanic islands. But they actually, in Hawaii, they mix the sea salt with charcoal, and charcoal is a detoxifier. It detoxes your body, and that's where it gets the black color from.
Really? I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And you don't need much.
No.
I have another question. I see a bread on there. You put that on the bread plate?
No, because by now there's a strong possibility that your bread plate would not be here. So based upon different meals, sometimes the bread is removed before certain courses. Sometimes it's not there for the main course. Sometimes it is. It just depends. But in this case, with this bread, this is just an item you pick up, and you're not going to break it. You're not going to do anything with your fingertips. You're just going to bite it off.
Do we still use this fork on the outside?
Mm-hmm. So outside fork, and then you can cut again with these. And of course, I didn't answer the question yet in regard to the garnishes. That if it's on your plate, it's edible. It sounds like we have some things in common, even more than I knew about us.
I agree.
With our likes, what our husbands like too, when it comes to food.
My husband's such a foodie. He is so jealous of my job and thinks that I don't appreciate it the way others would. And we get to eat so well.
Well, it is a treat. I am sure that you do appreciate.
Oh, I do. But he is such a foodie. He just he will eat anything. He loves to try different foods, and cultures, and everything else.
Is he adventurous?
I am the exact opposite.
Mm-hmm.
I eat some form of caprese every day. Whether it's a sandwich, whether it's in a pasta, whether it's I just love it.
I can't get it. It just,
This is absolutely fantastic. Your husband's here with you?
on this trip he is,
Oh, how
because we
lovely.
were in Lake Tahoe, and so I encouraged him to come on this trip. Well, it hasn't been the best experience, as I was telling Karen, because of the weather, the flights, getting in,
Oh, it's
the delays. And then, as I was sharing with Kim, we had this wonderful idea of driving.
Oh,
Or I should say, I had a wonderful idea.
about
I
7
thought it
hours?
would be relaxing. Oh, yes, it's 7
with
hours.
not a single stop.
Without a yes. But there are two different routes, and we did the road, one going out, and a different one going back.
Ooh.
Let's just say that I did enjoy flying in BB or BD. So, I
Do you?
So all those wild girls I was in, and we found the most fabulous little restaurant.
Really? And dating?
So much so we're going to go back. Gemma's. G-E-M-A. G-E-M-A apostrophe S. The mother, the mother who owns her sister are from Chihuahua. And they have this, it's not only Mexican, it's just the best point.
How funny. My husband's from the Bahamas. We've driven up a few times, and it's. He used to have to drive up there for work all the time, too.
We love the restaurant so much. Yesterday we went from I had a chili enchilada. He had chili
I didn't go
and
that
then
far.
on our way up, we stopped at the fountain on our way up today. So we were there twice.
Yeah.
And we even planned our trip yesterday to be there for so we could before Cook back to Vegas.
It's a spirit. It's worth that.
Spanish opera.
They're two very different elements.
Just oh gosh, it's just such a good place. But they have club sandwich too. Big salad.
Yeah.
So they've got everything. There's just such a tiny place. And the burros are walking around wild. So I told my husband to walk. I really was.
You know, jump in your TV, your freaking back lines.
I didn't realize that this drove
These are all big deals.
everywhere. They just go where they want. Right on our way. And then it goes back to the board meeting. But they would let me walk. So they have 3 days to do whatever.
We've done from
And
here
so
to
when I was down here from New York, I was like,
From here to New York and New York.
so I was walking up the mountains, and she was like, we're gonna be careful with the
They were
burros.
set up for you to
It doesn't really like dogs up there, so I thought they were more like a mountain lion, and I saw the burro.
When you walk down the aisle, it's like
And I hung down and ran, and my husband looked at me like,
Yeah.
I had no idea what a burro
Even this
was.
trip, we had an 88 flight, it was 7 hours. 88. I was out.
Everything from the
Yes.
Well, it's
He's
loud.
revving up the engine.
Right.
and I was
Watch us take off.
Well, I learned that a bird is only
Well,
just
if you
away
drive
from
from that
dogs.
road, you wake up early in the air.
I'm talking to a horse.
No, government landing.
I've done that where
Not domestic, but like
only like if I wanted
where a donkey is. They're so bad.
2 hours.
Now a mule is a combination of horse and
And you know, we were doing it.
Right after you
Combination of
Something about it.
My husband did. I'm like, what?
My husband's running and I just.
car rides too.
Oh, I had such a fascinating time.
Yeah.
And I bet, yeah, I think of a donkey because I think it's,
We're going to take that car ride.
they have a donkey with certain features of the donkey. I did
I can fall asleep driving to work in the morning.
basically
So they
because they
can
don't know. And also you can do
Right on my business.
burros or donkeys.
Yeah, my dad used to fall asleep.
They evaluate on the decision they're doing. Oh, they're deep thinkers. Well, we did this whole research yesterday. It was just quite an experience.
Oops, sorry.
So now I said, now I have asked for breakfast with them. And my husband said, look at the breakfast. Just adorable. It has been great. It's been fun. Just different than what we expected, but we have had some good gems.
Well, that's.
Oh, I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, travelers.
No, he's already checking the flights back tomorrow. They're gonna go to China. It's
And they're all using actually that vacation and their insurance anywhere they're gonna go to the that's just what happens.
So was able to fall asleep. It was also
Oh, yeah, especially if you do it here, like,
Oh, yeah.
that was for the airline for a very short time.
See?
They modeled it.
That works.
What they call engines.
It just
They were pilots from Continental Airlines.
Yeah, actually, it's not too bad actually. I think that's
That was wonderful. Yeah. I had no idea. Calling us.
Probably in the 80s.
Oh,
Wow.
yeah, okay.
But they,
Celebrities.
basically,
It wasn't our fault. It was
so I could fly 7 years in the last but the problem with them is they expanded. So they had the same thing.
My traveling has been
But
spotty.
then they wanted to expand the routes to.
But that's gonna work
They didn't do it.
It's almost like
This is just one of those
So
trips
the
that
last
has
flight,
Like a culinary
just
village.
flew
I want to go to school. I'm more accustomed to having issues, and I can anticipate what's going to happen. Mine was not only were we barely here,
one of my
barely
girlfriends.
last 2 seasons. They just
was
rallied.
it aircraft enough to get to New Orleans and how was it?
They are unbeknownst to us, we're thinking, well, the 12 people in there, like, oh no. So then we got because so many people, but they did get us. It took a little while. And as long as you pay us. And they gave us back. We were leaving here Friday. So I tried to say, no, I said, "What's wrong?"
Always, you know,
We made it, everything's fine. It's all over the
That's a new job.
I barely just enough
Like for me, it's like real the luggage gets lost. Like,
Well, yeah, that's a good
pair of flip flops. They don't sell like a
yeah, I missed that they pulled out of line.
Oh, you're an honor. Like,
I make some and like how to make this place.
Yeah, they didn't put another
Alright. And because children cross them
There's a bunch of
Yeah.
Lemon sorbet to cleanse your palate.
So everybody came by. He's like, "Do you guys get?"
I would hate it because I love food. I don't even go to
Lemon sorbet to cleanse your palate before your meal.
Never
High maintenance.
Lemon sorbet to cleanse
So this is a lemon sorbet to refresh your palate before dinner comes. Enjoy it, and it has a basil leaf which goes really good with the lemon.
Thank you.
Now, a few extra courses that can happen to you. Sometimes when you first arrive, before you start anything, you'll have what's called a moose bouche. And so that's to stimulate the taste buds and get it going. So be prepared. That happens not always, but occasionally. And even part of today's initial offerings could have been classified in that category too. I just wanted to give you that name so you would be aware it's not always called an appetizer. It is going to be sometimes called a moose bouche based upon how it is served, when it is served, and what the content is. And then as part of a palate cleanser, you can often have these. It's very nice to have it served prior to your main entree, just to get you ready, so your taste buds are just like, yay. And then sometimes you'll have a palate cleanser right before dessert. So it depends upon the restaurant and the environment, but just be ready for what possibly might happen This looks absolutely delightful, so shall we enjoy?
That's pretty good.
Isn't it?
I was expecting it to be more sour, but it's a good balance.
It is delightful.
Like a lemon curd.
Yes. And who doesn't love them?
Yeah, I was fortunate enough just to.
I used to not like those things with desserts
Really?
until they started being started out in school because we have a restaurant there. And then they started trying the lemon tart, and eventually started like we'd get dessert every day at the family meal. So I just like
Well, good.
Just for 2 years.
Now you're not missing out.
Is it okay to like picking up?
I know.
Picking up.
No, no picking up.
Yeah, I mean, we did.
I had a question.
It's helped.
Oh, go ahead.
Magnolias and a whole glass cups.
Because
Yes.
what they do for breakfast.
All right.
It's really well done.
The question that I'd like to share for everyone now, if you are holding a glass by the stem, it is going to be your 2 first fingers away from you on one side, your thumb towards you. You don't hold it by the bowl of the glass, and you don't hold it by the base, or what's also called the foot of the goblet. And the longer the stem is, if it is a chilled beverage, the further down the stem you hold your fingers. So if it is a chilled beverage, you want your fingers as far away from the base of the goblet as possible.
Thank you.
Good question.
I wanted to talk about Kyle's question. I know you're not supposed to lift things, but in like some cultures it is appropriate.
Yes.
Is that fine?
Yeah, absolutely. I do recommend always adapt to the culture in which you are dining. So if you are dining in any type of, let's just say, Middle Eastern restaurant, and you're going to be seated on the floor, and you're not going to be given silverware, you're going to need to know how to use only the right hand, never the left hand, without silverware, when you eat everything, whether it's a lamb shank or couscous. So yes, you do want to always blend in with that culture. And if you don't know what to do, ask for assistance from the people who invited you to that event. So yes, in some cultures it's absolutely acceptable to bring the bowl up and you hold the bowl while you're enjoying your noodle dish or broth or soup. Absolutely, you can do that then. In fact, I do recommend if you're invited to a restaurant where chopsticks are the norm within that culture, by all means know how to use chopsticks so that you can sit there and enjoy the entire ambiance and the way things are done within that culture. Some Asian restaurants frown upon having to offer a knife and a fork or a spoon.
Would that
Yes.
Would that be improper to use a fork if the chopstick offered?
Within some of the restaurants, they become just a little miffed over the. You knew you were coming to this restaurant, and now you're asking us for a knife and a fork. Hello. So sometimes they do find it rude and kind of impertinent on our part. But how can I word this kindly? A lot of people, and I don't want to generalize, but a lot of people don't want to make the effort to learn about other cultures. They just want to do it the same old way and expect everyone to accommodate them. Which is, if you're here in the United States, you might be accommodated. If you travel to other cultures, the accommodation is not going to happen the way you might think. And it can be that arrogant American then, rearing its head, demonstrating that they're very ethnocentric. So no, I suggest learn that, and then by all means you're going to find it's just so enjoyable. It's not difficult to learn to use chopsticks, but you need to make the effort.
Would it be rude, like say you were at like a ramen place and they offer like the cheaters for your chopstick? Would that be rude to use those, or?
It's not rude to use them. It's definitely showing that you're not as comfortable going without those, but it's better than asking for a knife and fork.
Now, if they provide a knife and a fork at the table, is that appropriate, or would
Yes.
you rather stay with chopsticks.
If you know how to use the chopsticks, I suggest you go that way. If you don't know how to use chopsticks and they have already provided you the knife and fork, say nothing. Don't make a big deal about it. But then note to self, I need to learn how to use chopsticks.
So what happens with like the whole soup thing? Because what happens with the soup, like with ramens or pho? Or do you just eat it the same way too? As we were taught with the sake soup?
No, you're going to have differences there. Absolutely, yes. Right.
And that would be a great when your mentor offers to take you to dinner. That would be a great opportunity to go and try it out and learn those. That I can guarantee you they know someone who works there or can help talk through that.
Absolutely. Without belaboring the issue, I cannot tell you how many clients I have coached over the years where a certain business deal was predicated upon their knowing that country's culture as they sat down to have dinner with them. I know of a contract that was pushed across the table for multiple millions of dollars and signed by someone from the Middle East only because he knew they had done their homework and that they knew how to dine correctly. He said, "You obviously are taking us seriously." And so I said, "Can I charge you more now?" Now that you know how to do this, you got the contract because of this training. But it impressed them so much.
And I think you'll see that a lot in Las Vegas, that there are so many different cultures that you have to be very respectful of. Yes.
Just to show your sensitivity will give you a distinct edge. Because there are people who just frankly don't bother with that. So by showing sensitivity without drawing generalizations and also apologizing if you make an error. Or for admitting what you don't know. Thank you for sharing that with me. Thank you. Thank you for helping me learn. They're very appreciative of you showing it. You're making the effort. That goes a very, very long way. Now, as far as etiquette questions, did any of you come with any that you wanted to ask me that were not necessarily relating to dinner, but anything else? I mean, we can still talk food. Okay.
Is there a specific thing you should order for drink? Formal dinner, like water, tea, or carbonated drinks, proper?
You mean like a soda?
As far as dinner itself, where things are a bit more formal, things like sodas come across more as a lunch item rather than an evening item. So, but not to say you can't do it, but it is definitely more of a casual feel. So going with, say, for instance, a club soda with maybe a twist of lime, or some sparkling water with a twist of lime, something like that.
When we're older and are legal to drink, is it a habit to order a wine or something like that?
Always go with the host. If there is a host, and let's just say I am your host today, and we're going to have wine as a possibility because we have different ages here at the table, but let's say you are of the legal age, then not knowing who in the group does or does not consume alcohol, I as the host, I would say, I have the wine list, may I order some wine for the table? And then I get everyone's nods, or people say, no, I don't think I'll have anything. Typically cocktails are before you have a beautiful meal like today. Let's say today was a dinner. So cocktails are before dinner, not during dinner. But there are many people, especially the younger generation, correct Ken, who like to have their cocktails, not wine, all the way through dinner. But that used to
Especially
be...
in Las Vegas, I'm sure.
Yeah, but that used to be something, oh no, you did not do that. That was just not considered good table manners. So, if you do not drink wine, however, let's just say you choose you don't drink wine for any number of reasons, or anything alcoholic. It's just beyond yummy looking.
That looks like
It looks like dessert with carrots on the side.
Yeah.
it's gorgeous.
But you never explain why you're not drinking. You never owe any apology or explanation. But people do count there as well, how many alcoholic beverages you drink. So do keep that in mind when the time comes. 2, no more than 2.
So no more than 2 at dinner?
Yes, no more than 2 at dinner. So 2 glasses of wine, or if someone has a cocktail at the table, followed by a glass of wine. Or something like that.
I'm gonna have my partner explain that dish.
So you have to the right Peruvian fingerling purple potatoes made in a puree, and then you have the espresso border lake sauce on the plate, and the filet is encrusted with espresso beans with coffee, and then you have the carrots and the broccoli just sauteed in a little butter and olive oil, a little seasoning, salt and pepper. Enjoy.
Bon appetit, you'll hear that a lot too. And so you can always be, if you're, again, the one in charge, or you just want to say it, you could just say to the group, oh, this looks lovely, bon appetit everyone, or please enjoy. So someone needs to get it going, and typically it's going to be the host is the one who does that. But I do want to give the caveat to that. Don't assume that every host has good manners. So the host should be doing certain things, but they themselves have not been to a class or did not know. So sometimes you'll be in a position where you'll need to do something to move everything forward.
We talk conversation at the table.
Yes.
One of the things I'd like to say is when you're speaking to the group, make sure the whole group can hear you. But I'm not going to carry a conversation with a vet across the table unless I'm speaking to everyone. Would you like to
Yes.
sort of talk about that?
Typically, when you're having a conversation, it will not be across the table with anyone. It's always going to be the person to your right. That's usually who you begin with. But that doesn't have to apply, because the person to my right might be talking to the person to their right. So it's the first person to your right, start with that person, or the first person to your left. And so it's going to be that kind of a conversation, not to say that maybe a person close to them on either side might not join in. But you don't want to have your conversation overtaking the entire table where other conversations are occurring. And it is nice to mix it up. So if I'm spending half of my meal talking with Melissa, then I really should be turning, is it Anthony? I should then turn and make sure that I am also speaking with Anthony a little bit as well. But I don't need to include him in this conversation. I can start a separate topic with him.
Could you perhaps start a conversation with Chris, or is that still reaching too far?
It's reaching, because I'm then having to be in the middle of Melissa and
Right.
talking around her, which then is going to impair her ability to eat her food. And again, I'm glad you asked that, because this just brings the focus back to see how much of this is truly common sense. So a lot of it is I'm thinking of Melissa rather than myself. Even though I may want to talk to Chris, I may think, well, I'm going to wait and have a sidebar with Chris after this meal is over, because it's going to interfere at this moment.
But then would it be rude if a vet started talking to Rizal because they're like catty corner to each other? Like,
Oh, sure.
would that be rude?
No, catty corner. You mean like an L shape? No, that's fine.
But I
Absolutely.
would say, and tell me if I'm wrong, so if Yvette is talking to Rizal,
Yes.
I wouldn't talk over Elise.
No.
You would include her in the conversation.
Yes.
Right.
So yes, don't forget they mentioned the salt. You could use that on your, as Anthony is using with his particular coffee crusted fillet. All you need.
Crusted with espresso beef?
Espresso sauce. A Bordelaise espresso sauce.
How's everything tasting so far?
Delicious, thank you.
Amazing. It's the same with
Never had
the
it before.
It's delicious.
But this, we don't carry this on our menu. It's Ivan wanted to experiment, so of course we have
You talking
They always do
delicious or all
this
of it?
because I find these great meals, and then it's like, oh no, we're just having fun.
Everything
Just
else
having
we
fun. You
have.
can never get this again.
Uh-oh, so enjoy.
Not up here.
I was thinking I should let my husband who to have this. And so I come up here and order the
Really?
coffee crusted fillet.
I think it's just mine. If you do have this on the menu, just not.
Do not.
Oh, you do not. Just kidding. Enjoy it now. You'll never have it again.
Just so you know, these chefs and the whole staff volunteered to do this today for us.
Oh.
Yeah, it means a lot to them. So, I mean, even the servers, everybody, it's.
I even brought out some extra veggie portalays for them.
Oh, he's so sweet. Thank you.
Deborah, I had a question.
he's always
The sauce on the plate.
I
How do we get
don't
all
know.
the vegetables wrong?
You can slightly move it around to like hit that spot as you then cut into it.
Oh, but when you cut it, you can't like slide it on the plate. You gotta-
You can a little bit, sure.
Okay.
But just not making like a whole big puddle.
Right.
And by the way, the service we have today is impeccable. You're not going to always have that in every restaurant. So the service you're getting with the extra attention, but you can tell they're very seasoned. They know what they're doing. They know which side to serve from, which side to remove from. They're not interruptive, incredibly gracious. So you really are having a fine dining experience here. And so the bar has been raised very high for you when you go to other restaurants.
And it's funny because you will do things from now on and remember moments from here, with knives and forks. So you'll see someone that you really respect and is very seasoned in their careers, and you'll see them do something and put their napkin on their plate or whatever it might be, and I'll think, you need Deborah's class.
I should just give you my business card to pass out. And I'm so glad you mentioned that, Melissa. Never take your napkin and put it on your plate. So at the end today, it will be neatly folded. You don't have to refold it, but placed on the side, on the left side where your forks were originally. That's the only finished position for a napkin. But think of what, again, they have to do when they take our plates back to the kitchen. And the napkins have to go into the laundry. And if they're full of whatever from the plate, that's a lot of extra work and cleaning and so forth that doesn't show a lot of tact on the part of the person who was dining.
We've been told in the past that if you excuse yourself from the table to go to the bathroom, to put your napkin hanging on the back of your chair.
Correct.
Is that true?
Absolutely. Place the napkin over the back of the chair, and when you do excuse yourself for any reason, maybe you have to take a quick cell phone call that you knew was coming in. But whatever your reason was for leaving, don't tell people what you're about to do. Because some people just, again, give too many details. Just a quick excuse me. That's all you have to say. But on that note, that cell phone should never be ringing. Even if you're expecting an emergency item, have it on vibrate. It should not be ringing. You want to really show complete total presence. So while you're finishing your meal, I want to highlight a few things on body language. That your body language is the first thing that people do read about you. So they're going to sense from your body language, your eye contact, even how you walk, what you're doing with your hands. They will determine if you are comfortable, if you are confident, or if you just can't wait to run the other way. So this is where understanding that good eye contact means you're able to look at someone, you know when to look away, but you don't enter into a staring contest because you don't want to ever come across as intimidating. But you also need to know what you do as far as signals that indicate you're bored or disinterested. You might have some fidget signals that you're unaware of. If you pull on your clothing a lot, or play with jewelry a lot, or fuss with your hair. Some men wiggle and reposition their ties frequently. Yes, look at their watch, things like that.
Sorry.
No, I thought you did that on purpose to help me. It was perfect timing. So there are certain things that will let people know that you're either in a hurry or you don't have time, or worse yet, that you're bored and disinterested. So be aware of your signals that will indicate you have my full attention. I'm only here with you. And I'm so glad to be here. And the more comfortable you are, it's going to show through your facial expressions, your smiles, all of those things that people will then be so impressed with.
I have a question. So, say you don't have time to carry on a big conversation with somebody. How do you politely tell them that you don't have time?
Right. I think, first of all, be transparent, be very honest. And just let them know, oh my gosh, I could talk to you all afternoon, or I wish I had longer. Can we schedule time to catch up? So you let them know that you're not being dismissive of what they're saying or them, but unfortunately you don't have any more time at this moment. And so I would say something such as, I wish I had an extra hour to spend with you, but I do have someone who's counting on me being there in just a few minutes. I hope you understand. Let's catch up later next week. I'll reach out to you. Let's schedule coffee. So whatever that person means to you, make sure they don't feel dumped by you unceremoniously in that moment.
Thank you. And you can tell me what you think about this. I often, because of family, because of other things, will have a hard stop. Today, I do have a sponsorship meeting after this. So if I don't tell someone that I have a hard stop at a certain time, I notice I get fidgety as it's getting closer.
Yes.
So I personally will go there and just say, let them know I have a hard stop at 2 o'clock, and I'm so excited to sit down and dine with you. But just just transparent, honest, and let everyone know what's going on.
Yes. And to use that expression, a hard stop, is important. A lot of people now don't give themselves enough time to get from point A to point B for meetings to start and end on time. And that's one of the most respectful things. So what is your hard stop today, Melissa?
Mine is 2 o'clock,
Okay.
and I have an MGM sponsorship meeting, and this was the only time they could fit me in for about another 5 weeks. So I said, well, that's this morning. Okay, I'll be there.
So do we know what time it is now?
I have about 15 minutes, but
Perfect.
But, and yes, it was very disappointing, but the decision maker for our fundraising dollars has been on sabbatical, and so she is completely booked through August. So this was the time they had for me.
And that works though, because by the time we wrap it up today, then we could also do another webinar. I think
Yes, that would be
might be
wonderful.
of interest to everyone as well. But I would suggest read through the workbook, come up with some additional questions. Just think of right now, you are developing your brand. And how do you want to be known? Timely, punctual, someone who delivers on what they promise, someone who's always looking the part, well-dressed, well-groomed, someone who verbally says the right thing without stepping on someone else's toes, who doesn't say things that might be offensive, doesn't use inappropriate slang or jargon. So when you think of your brand, it encompasses everything. So it's everything from what you say, how you say it, how you behave, all of your habits, and you're at such a perfect place to just start developing. This is my brand that I want to be known by. So ask yourself this question: when people are talking about me behind my back, and you know they will, how would I like to be described? And so just function knowing that people will always be saying things about you. You can't control that, but it's nice to know you get to manage your brand because you manage what you put out there. And a lot of people have missteps, and frankly, they have a hard time recovering from some of their not so stellar moments. And I don't mean dining, but I mean someone who says something such as a cliche that offended a certain culture, or people who use expressions that are not well received by someone else. So you do want to be very, very cognizant of this is what is expected from today. For instance, I am taking out of my delivery the expression ladies and gentlemen, because I never know who in my group, and I want to make sure everyone is feeling included, but for everyone who's binary, etc. So now I'm using very, very careful language that is not gender specific, because that is important for Gen Z, and to be aware of that and sensitive to it without drawing attention to it. So instead of saying, welcome ladies and gentlemen, I just say, welcome everyone. I'm delighted to see all of you. So just making those adjustments. So as I say, yes, you can teach an old dog new tricks. But it's my job, my generation, to make sure that we are growing and learning and to be inclusive. And this is something that I find very admirable about Gen Z, about Gen Y. And my goal every day is to learn from you. So see, my goal is not just what I can share with you, but what can I learn from you? So do you have any new terms you'd like to share with me? Any new slang that perhaps I need to know?
I don't even know all of them.
They're constantly growing, aren't they?
Something. I feel older every day. Now I noticed you didn't you mentioned this last time, you don't push your food away
Yes.
and say,
Yes.
oh, that was so,
Yes.
oh my goodness.
Right. You don't want to push your plate away to indicate, okay, bring on the dessert. Take this away, but instead, and the same thing is you don't turn your plate any other direction either.
So I put my hands on the table, so when I'm done, I push it a little bit, just so I have a spot. That's not okay.
Well, maybe just a teeny tiny spot.
Okay.
That's better.
You
Sorry.
mostly don't touch the plate that they serve.
But, and that's, again,
One
when we're
snack.
talking typically more private. There are things, people have now turned a restaurant table into an office room. An office table. A lot of people now are just spreading the plates away and putting the paperwork on the table. And not every restaurant loves that either. They get a little miffed at that.
And I think a board meeting is a different story because
Yes,
expect it.
that's a working lunch, which has a whole different set of items. And my goodness, look at what they're about to provide. And they've got equipment. I've seen that before.
We're gonna bring the sugar from the creme brulee on the top.
I know.
Now, how do you politely change a topic? Like if someone were to bring up politics and you don't feel comfortable talking about that with them because you know your views are different, how would you like politely tell them, I don't want to talk about this with you?
Well, based upon, may I take one of those, please? Thank you.
Do you want to give me some of that as well?
I might give them a couple. Well,
I think you need to. You
yeah,
can't
I
miss
think
out
so
on
too.
this.
So I'm thinking about food here. Sorry, I need to get back to your question. All right. There are going to be judgment calls in this situation. So I try to use humor to deflect. So I will say things such as, oh my goodness, we're not going down that rabbit hole today, are we? We might not be able to come back out. And so I try to use humor so I don't answer it. If someone says to me, which I just received this question the other day, Deborah, do you think former President Trump should run again? I have opinions on that. Am I going to share my opinion with my clients? Not a chance. Because I will never be always right because people have differing viewpoints. And so my answer was simply this. Goodness, every day there are some new news about what's happening and who's going to run. What have you heard? Because I really don't even know what's going on in that regard. What do you think? So I put it right on them, and then people do start talking. All I have to do is ask the question, what do you think? And oh, they tell me. And then that helps me because I then know what's going on. So if someone, however, there's also a strategy. I don't want to take away from the magic here as he makes that magic happen.
Has anyone ever seen this before? Yeah?
I haven't eaten creme brulee.
Maybe?
And there's just a way to do it.
You should make it. Some might have.
But one more note on the conversational exchange. It's always better to change the conversation on your statement, not theirs. And by that I mean, it's kind of like an exit strategy. They said something, then you add something to that. Then you change the topic. So I could say, oh, we're not going on that rabbit hole, are we? And then I change the topic.
So not to like ignore what they said,
Yes.
but to acknowledge them and then also
Correct.
at the same time be respectful and not want to
You
talk.
nailed it, yes. Acknowledgement is key because people do not like to feel dismissed or that what they said wasn't important enough to even be acknowledged. So very good point. Thank you for that.
I think it's important to remember that people don't remember what you say, but they remember how you made them feel.
Yes.
So no one is actually, unless you have a very opposing political view of them, they're not going to remember that political view, but they'll remember that you made them feel wrong or dismissed or anything like that. So, and Chris and I both, there's a difference between talking politics to each other, but we don't talk politics in person. I'm very careful that out in public, our social media doesn't reflect that. Now you can have a voice. I think that's something that's really interesting about this generation is that they like to use their voice. But remember, you speak now for everybody who works for you as you move up in your company. You now represent your company, you represent those that work for you, and you're only going to make half the people happy, and you're going to insult the other half. And so I'm very careful about that. I represent Epicurean Charitable Foundation, I represent our board, and I represent our students and our donors. So why, even if I have great, there's something I can speak to, but I'm very careful that I don't alienate 50% and make them angry at Epicurean because they disagree with me. So I'm very careful of that. Hello, Chef! Oh, so lovely to see you!
How are everybody today?
Oh,
Good, how are you?
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Got to see a couple of them this morning before we came in. Is everybody enjoying the afternoon?
It's been amazing. Thank you.
Did you get your special?
I did. Thank you, as always. It was
Chef Ivan was very creative with that.
to die for. It's absolutely fantastic.
So, it was quite a challenge to introduce Ivan and Ed. They've already been out, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Yes.
So they're great creative chefs, especially Ivan. Ed, the room chef up here in the steakhouse. I'm sure you're already aware of that. And Ivan is the area chef over at Fort Queens. But it was a great pleasure working with both of them to create this menu. And we wanted to bring you up to the steakhouse, like Mr. Johnson said, just to give you a different environment of the Hugo's, which is still a beautiful place to eat if you ever get a chance to go down there. But it was a pleasure to see you come join us today. So
Thank you for having us.
I've known Melissa for
I've made his life more difficult for many years. But you'll see Chef Butch at a lot of things, from our bowling tournaments to just everywhere we do ECF. Chef shows up and tolerates me.
So again, I hope everything was to your liking today. Please do not be afraid to let us know. We like to hear the comments. That's how you develop things, as we know. So,
Well,
again,
I'll tell you what you do with the Impossible Meat now is just to die for. It is, you do great things with it. And I've tried to replicate what Chef Andrew did last event, and I couldn't. It was a disaster.
Oh no.
I can't cook, so I shouldn't have expected to replicate. Thank you. Chef is so
as
good.
long as you, I tell everyone, when you eat something or make anything, use the spices or whatever you like to eat. Try it, because now the world is begging for whole new flavors out there. So if you want to try it, it can't hurt to try it. That's all I can tell you. Okay.
Right.
So enjoy your desserts, and again, thank you for showing up today. And I hope it's a great experience for everybody. All right. I'll see you at the bowling alley here in about a month. I'm the one that's not running around, so I'll be seeing you folks run around, okay? So, Melissa, thank you again. Thank you for joining us again.
Oh, my
also.
pleasure. Thank you.
Wasn't quite sure what day you were going to come in, so I'm glad you were able to make it. So
Thank you.
you're welcome. I'll see you at the bowling alley too.
As always. Thank
He's the one
you.
that's running around.
Yeah.
I have to leave in about 2 minutes.
2 minutes,
This
count.
was so lovely.
Thank you.
for being here. And thank you all for being here as well.
Okay.
It's been a pleasure. I was enjoying it.
Well, I do too. I look forward to it every summer. It's one of those things where once Melissa invited me, if I can work my schedule around and be here at the same time. So far, it's worked really, really well.
Yes, we love having you, because otherwise it's going to be Ken, Chris, and myself teaching etiquette, and that, yeah.
Because you gotta go.
Well, they'd be in good hands. Well,
Would you mind if I take a few bites? Because I do need to,
please do.
leave.
Please take a few bites.
And I cannot walk out without trying this.
Well, no.
Oh,
Or maybe you should have.
I know.
Take it to go.
Tell me there was just not a single.
Oh,
I feel
I
terrible.
fully understand how things are going.
I we can look at October, August August 23rd. August 23rd. I was like, well, we need your sponsorship commitment before that.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So.
No, you have to do it. And when you leave, they'll be in good hands, I'm sure. Is Chris leaving with you?
No, everybody else is here.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
We'll say our goodbyes and I'll look forward
This is
to
my
seeing
favorite day of the year.
I know.
And it's not just the food, it's the company.
Oh, this is great. Thank you. I love all the company. Well, you're very welcome. Thank you.
I just dessert with a group of
Great participants. Wonderful
Just pretend I was
questions.
taking it.
Melissa, I have questions. What's the student orientation season?
And you'll
I'm surprised.
it is really just a way for us to get to know you and
Enjoy it,
get to
everyone.
know each
Thank
other.
you.
Thank
You know, we'll go over some ECF things that you might
You
need
did a
to know.
beautiful job.
Well, thank you.
But it's really just to kick off the year because I say this all the time, but in Las Vegas, it's your network, and those who are sitting at the table are your future network as you move up the ranks to mid-level management, higher level management. That it's really important that you get to know each other. And so many classes now are online or virtual or semi-virtual that you just don't see each other as much. So we're really focusing on connectivity this year. Just so we get to know each other. How was your internship, by the way?
Oh, it's been great.
I'm so glad.
Eric, Bella, and Chris, we just all enjoyed Al Sahara. It's been so good to be interns.
Oh.
Good, great experience. Food and beverage department, I gotta say, it's the best one there.
That's what everyone's been saying. They turned Crystal.
Yeah.
She was solid, I think it was events, and now wants food and beverage. Ken also does that. Anybody who gets Ken as his mentor, they change to food and beverage as well. There's just certain people, Anthony, Alzheimer, Ken, seems to be the change catalyst on careers.
And you're at Sahara?
Yeah, for an internship.
They're about to become one of my interns.
Oh, really?
No, but Maria was.
Just met with them on Monday before I left for Lexington. So they have a really interesting ownership of the joint property to boutique. It's going to be really, really extra special.
I hope everything was satisfactory.
To die for.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right. Very good, Doug.
Thank you very much.
I'd love to speak, but my mouth is full with dessert. And it's between being courteous and this dessert. I'm going to choose the dessert.
Over next to that. Let's have a good afternoon.
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Pleasure cooking for you today.
Just a second.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh.
So it's.
You're very welcome. So as you run, I will be in touch with you later.
Yes,
Check
thank
in
you.
for the webinar. So I'm going to close by showing you how to give a toast, but please continue eating. Thank you again, Melissa.
Thank you, Melissa.
Grab my food.
So you've been recording this whole time?
We've been recording the ceiling this whole time.
No, just not.
Oh, it just fell. I was like, oh no.